Now we're going to get down to the nitty gritty. So we have all of the context. We have the core of our brand in our our values and our attributes. We've talked about our villains. We've talked about some really great examples that hopefully you spend some time looking deeper into. Now we're going to speak about how you speak. So the actual voice and words. So your brand voice is an extension of the brand attributes that you've already decided. So some common ways that you're going to sound are open-minded, resourceful, tolerant, expansive, questioning, open, and idealistic. So again, go through this process of whittling down those words and then also expanding on those words by finding more synonyms excuse me, in the thesaurus, or you could even search for some of these words on Pinterest to see like what kind of quotes come up to get ideas about your brand voice there. So phrases that might be uttered by somebody with your brand archetype are something like at the drop of a hat, inkling of a possibility, a leap of faith, life-changing experience, getting out of your comfort zone, or on the journey. So think about your own colloquialisms, there we go, or idioms, or just conversational phrases that you use, and identify which ones have this element of discovery or self-exploration or trying new things. And you can actually incorporate those into your brand, and you'll sound like you're in more alignment with you as a person, if you're a single founder or entrepreneur that's driving your brand. And you'll also connect with people on that like emotional level because you're using actual phrases that sound conversational and they sound like a friend would say them, but it's a friend who's like super adventurous and amazing, and we live vicariously through all of their choices in life. When you're thinking about your title, you could use words like guide, advisor, trailblazer, lead, wanderer. Basically, you're carrying the torch for people behind you. So you may not be this like guru CEO type, but you are the person who is leading the pack and putting yourself in perhaps risk or even danger to benefit your audience and your people. So think of that type of theme as you're choosing what to call yourself. Now, the call to action, our first inclination whenever we're writing something is to be kind of generic or to be neutral, to use the words that come most easily to our minds, and by default, they're the most generic words. So instead of saying something like join my newsletter list, you're going to want to say something like experience the wonder of blank, or it all starts here, come aboard or come abroad, begin, set out to, start, navigate to. These types of words pack a much heavier emotional punch. They carry more emotional weight, and I'm sure that you can brainstorm a few of your own as well. So every opportunity that you're speaking to your ideal client or customer or potential client or customer, you have this opportunity to layer on additional understanding of your brand. And the more that you do this, the more that they're going to understand what you stand for at a deep core emotional level, and the more that they're going to want to work with you because they understand what you stand for and they want some of what you have. So when you're thinking about naming your newsletter list, your products, your services, think about words like camp, experience, expedition, without borders, frontier. All of these words are very much on brand for your archetype. And again, thesaurus is your best friend as you're doing this because the words that we think of first may not be the strongest. They're not the most precise. They're not the most specific. So I spend an inordinate amount of time in the thesaurus, And I've done a lot of that in this collection over the years, coming up with all of these different words that fit for your type. So I've done the heavy lifting of starting this for you. You have the opportunity to polish it, to make it even a little bit better for you personally. All right, lastly, in this section, I have swipeable headlines. Pause the video here if you want to read through all of them. But you can tell lessons from people who have gone before you. You need blank to find yourself. Top X sites, as in X is a number, to find blank, life above and beyond blank. All of these instill that sense of wonder, of adventure, of finding new things. So in your guidebook, I have a brainstorming session and then I have a copy makeover exercise for you. Do the brainstorming session first. So think through each of these different categories and ways that you could communicate your Explorer archetype in new and amazing and on-brand ways. Again, use the thesaurus, use some visual brainstorming on Pinterest by searching for keywords. This is the type of work that takes time on the front end and pays dividends on the back end. So once you create this docket, this treasure chest of language that you're going to use for your brand specifically, then you have that to refer back to whenever you're writing something new. Super, super powerful. Now, the copy makeover exercise speaks to that idea where the first time, take a sip of my tea here. The first time that you write something can be quite neutral or just straightforward. So it really takes going back to your writing after you write it the first time and analyzing if it's communicating your archetype or not. So checking back to those feelings that you want to make people feel in the first video or second video that we did, and seeing if the language choices that you're making and the examples that you're using and the stories that you're using are communicating your archetype or not. And you can actually, if you have a primary and a secondary archetype, you can pick out the words that are communicating both of those things. And the goal here is that you want the overall message, the greater than average of your word choices, the emotional ones, to be pointing towards your correct archetype. You don't want to confuse people with too many competing messages. So I've given you an example of my own writing and how I coded out one of my new blog posts, the intro, and shows you that how I show up primarily as magician and sage, because I'm taking the time to revisit my writing and change some of the ideas if they're going down the wrong path, if they're communicating messages that are different than our core messages for our archetype. So again, this is not perhaps an easy exercise. It takes a little bit of time, but it's so worth it, especially with the really high value pieces of copy. So things like your homepage copy, your about page copy, your social media profiles, these types of things that tons of people are going to see. Make sure that they're on brand and on archetype. I've given you a whole bunch of ideas here to start doing that. So I'm confident that you're going to be able to make something amazing. Good luck and have fun.